I want to tell you all how much I've enjoyed working with you these past 2 years. This is my last meeting with you. As you go back to in person, you will no longer need my services. And I will not be staying for the rest of the meeting. Kim knows how to end the meeting and stop the recording. And Nicole, our IT guru, is here as an attendee. So if you should need any help, Kim, she is there. And I wish you all lots of luck moving forward.
Well, Carolyn, thank you so much for being here, making our meetings possible.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for such a generous host this entire time.
Thank you. All right, y'all have a great meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Bye-bye.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and read for our last virtual meeting. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with Ordinance 20A-14, an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. The committee members who are electronically present at this meeting are Michael Callahan, Abigail Wilson, Bruce Gatlin Austin, Leah Young, Lonnie Murray, Peggy Cornett. Did I get everybody? The opportunities for the public to access the electronic meeting are posted on the Albemarle County website, on the Board of Supervisors homepage, and on the Albemarle County calendar. So thank you all for being here. And it looks like we have a few attendees. So I just want to welcome the attendees. And if you would like to comment at some point, Kim, how do we do it again? Raise your hand.
Just raise your hand and I can unmute you.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you so much. And really always excited to have some attendees. And thank you members for being here. Really appreciate that.
I will say there are many people out with COVID, like where I work, and I mean, I'm just surprised we're going back to in-person meeting. But anyway, we'll see. They're talking about COVID cranking up again in the fall. So,
Christine, do we have matters from the public on our agenda? An opportunity for any of the attendees to speak if they want.
I think what we're going to do is, if one of our attendees would like to comment, that we can they can raise their hand and we'd be happy to hear what they have to say. How's
Okay.
that
I
sound?
mean, that's fine.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. All right, well, we're just going to jump in here, and I hope everybody had an opportunity to look at the agenda for today's meeting. And if we could go ahead, if somebody would make a motion to approve our August 2022 agenda.
I move that we approve the August 4th agenda.
All right, thank you. Second?
I second.
All right, thank you, Peggy. And then we're just going to take a vote all the way down the line. Michael, do you approve?
I do.
Peggy?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Abigail?
I approve.
Lonnie?
Aye.
Bruce?
Yes.
And Leah is Leah, are you here?
Yeah, she is. And Nicole, I'm trying to promote her, but it doesn't seem to be working. Unless she's just not
She's on the attendees list. Yeah.
Oh, there she
There.
is.
I've added her.
Hi, Leah. Leah, do you approve the minutes? I mean, the agenda?
Yay, I think I'm in, sort of. I still have to get my video. Woo, sorry, I've been in and out 4 times. Yes, I approve.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, and I hope that everybody got a chance to see the great job that Kim always does with the minutes. So the July minutes. Hopefully everybody got a chance to look at those. There was no feedback on them. So if somebody could make a motion to approve the July minutes.
I move to approve the July minutes.
Okay, thank you, Abigail. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And we're going to go for a vote. Abigail?
I approve.
All right. Lonnie?
Aye.
Peggy?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
And Leah?
I approve.
Thank you very much. All right. Kim, should I share my screen, or could you put up the agenda?
I can.
Okay, thanks.
Just a moment. Not seeing it for some reason. Just one moment.
Yeah, and I kind of have it, I have it up, but I'm gonna, the first thing on the agenda is follow-ups on the important sites. And just wondering if anybody has had an opportunity to visit any of the important sites. And if you have, to go ahead and let us know. And speaking of importance, well, first of all, let me give you a chance to respond to that question. All right, it's been too hot.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
So we had talked in our last meeting about having an important site visit together. And I just sent out a straw poll for the last week in August, just because I wasn't even sure, I just threw that out there. So I thought maybe we could start there and see if we have a group of people that we can find sort of a date where we've got enough of a group to do that. And so what I did is for the weekdays, I had us starting at 4 and ending at 7, and then the weekend. So I just thought I'd take a stab at that. And then I did send out something to Abigail and Dan, about the important sites and sort of what they are, where they are, what we've been doing with them, pointing out the folders. And one thing, as I was looking through, I do want to comment that doing an important site visit, there are many questions in the form. And it also, from my mind, seems to require quite a bit of knowledge in terms of knowing your plants. And I'm certainly not in that category myself. And I know, Kim, we had talked about simplifying that so that we just made it a little bit easier and it doesn't feel quite as daunting to go to one of the important sites. And maybe we need sort of a more simplified checklist. And that way we're more apt to go and make those observations and be able to report back to the committee some general things about how the site is looking. So this is what came to my mind as I was reviewing all that information. But this would be a great topic of conversation if we can find a time that we could all go together and look at one of those important sites. Lonnie.
Yes, we've kind of swung back and forth over the years about gathering more information or less information at these sites. And I think that the general idea is that we wanted to have something that was, scientifically defensible in terms of what we had at the information we're gathering there. Now, I mean, I think it's really the information that's out there. Not that it can't be simplified, but the idea was that you fill in what you can. I mean, it's not all required information. People shouldn't feel obligated to fill out and all that information, but you fill out whatever you can.
Yeah, that's another way to approach it for sure. And to not feel overwhelmed by looking at the form.
I mean, I think the biggest barrier to going to some of these sites is just the initial contact with the landowner and setting that up. So if anyone doesn't feel like they that they have the that they want to that they can or want to visit a site themselves, maybe they don't feel confident in their naturalist ability or whatever the reason is, but you do feel like you're someone that could contact landowners, that would be something that would be of service to the committee. We've had people in the past that did that they just contacted landowners and helped schedule, and that's a huge service if someone's willing to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also would like to add that last year I had made a push for people to look at this prioritized list of important sites and to choose one or two of those sites and to sort of take that on as a steward. And I know I did that, but the only one I've really paid attention to is the Blenheim Grasslands, which is really easy because I live really close to that property. But so that there's that other option is just to, to find a site that's close to you that you can check in on. And then Lonnie, I love the idea of making contact and then also inviting the rest of the committee, and perhaps you'd get somebody to come with you. And we have people who are knowledgeable. Peggy, Lonnie, that are plant people.
Well, we need reptile people and, and bird people and
Yeah.
all kinds of people.
Yeah, well, then we do have lots of expertise here.
And there's also, on your phone, there's this magic thing called iNaturalist. So even if you don't know what you're observing, I just encourage, people, you can show up, have a phone, take pictures of things, and we can help you identify those later.
Yeah. And in each of those important site folders, there is a place for uploading any photographs you take as well.
Yeah. And there's even a birding app that like you can take a recording with your phone and it'll tell you what birds it heard.
Yeah, Merlin I'm addicted to it. I love it. It's called Merlin Bird ID. It's a free app. It's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was done by Cornell, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my wife Sharon, she uses it all the time.
It's really amazing. Yeah.
All right. So any other discussion? Thank you for that. But and I really hope that we can perhaps find that date that we can all get together, or as a solid group of us, to look at one of the important sites. And maybe we can do two of them. Yes, Leah.
I'd just like to say that I really like the idea of some of us going out together, or a group of us going out together and figuring out exactly what are we supposed to do with these important sites, because I've never totally bought into the whole important site concept because I don't have any firsthand knowledge of them other than the Eagle's Nest and Crow's Egg near where I live. And since many of the sites were designated as important sites based on populations of somewhat rare or unusual plants, as I understand it, we don't know if any of those plants are still there. And the data is old. The data on which those designations were made is old data. So my heart's never been in it, and I'm not really clear on exactly what I should be doing. And specifically, I mean, it's easy to go and look for an eagle's nest, but to go and look for a remnant population of some unusual plant, I'm just like, that's just not my forte. I mean, I can't really contribute to that. So I think it'd be great if we went out together and figured out, how do we want to really manage these important sites? What kind of data do we want that's really useful?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that part of what happened is COVID, and
Yep.
we had so many new members, and so who haven't had any experience. And I myself feel like I have limited experience looking at the important sites as well. And I've been around for a while now.
Another possibility, it's something that we could all do, is just do some background research on all the sites. So for example, find the sites in the Albemarle County GIS, pull up the aerial photographs of the sites, see if there's any land use changes that occurred over the years. If we pull up a site and see that that now it's a parking lot, then that's something we should take note of. But you can do all that from the comfort of your own home, is just do that research from your computer.
And I'd like to just make another plug for each of us picking a few of those prioritized important sites. And that way, if we have 10 members, we would have 20. If each of us just picked 2, we'd have 20 sites covered. So, that way we can divide and conquer, so to speak. And so I do want to thank, Leah signed up for a couple of them. I think Bruce has as well.
One
So-
question I would have too about the important sites, especially if some of them were created specifically for remnant populations of plants, is basically what happens with the information. So especially if we have a scientific basis, like, are we submitting these to the county record? I know that there are organizations who have that as part of their professional mission. So is this a duplicate effort that someone else is already doing? I like the idea of keeping track of important site visits. It seemed to be in line with the spirit of what we're doing here. But just wanting to make sure that that's gathering of scientific information is appropriately targeted.
Kim, did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to, so the state natural heritage program tracks rare species and natural communities, but they don't track them at the level that well, with any frequency, mainly because of staff capacity, but also in to the level that some of our important sites are. So with things that are, recognized as state rare or significant, then DCR may have visited those sites, but otherwise they're not, and they aren't likely to unless there's a reason to. So my answer is, I was trying to respond that I don't think there is duplication in that.
Yeah. And then to add to that, sometimes we've discovered we have a site that's important, we've recognized as an important site. And then later DCR has, based upon this committee's work, DCR has visited that site and then recognized it themselves as an important site. Some examples of that would be Brush Mountain, would be what is that? Yeah, the one by Red Hill. What is that? No, it's not Gladden Fields. It's the William S. Byrd Natural Preserve, Dudley Mountain.
And Avon Swamp as well, where
Oh.
the rare plants were found. But we have to report it to them for them to know. So if there is something that we find, I think that's important to do.
Yeah, all of natural heritage pretty much fits on a couple floors in one building.
I have an idea, and I don't know how feasible this is, but what about having our next meeting at one of these important sites?
I
So
think that's,
like
I
the
think
Avon Swamp, or
I like
something.
that idea. That would be good.
I like it as well.
What do you think, Kim?
I think that it is possible if it's open to the public. So it would have to be a site that is public, or the landowner is okay with the public accessing it, because we still have to post our regular meeting as or any meeting of this committee and make it open to the public.
we do have some sites that are actually in county parks. They're special sites. So there's Pretty Creek.
Biscuit Run.
Mhm.
There's Biscuit Run. There's also the trail coming from Darden Towel, is it Old Mills Trail or something? But basically you park at Darden Towel, I think, and then you walk from there.
That'd be good.
All right, well, let's give a go for the last week in August. And we can perhaps discuss this further about the possibility of actually meeting at one of these sites. And how's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right.
Like it.
wonderful. All right, I think we are ready to move on to staff update.
Sure. We've already talked about, and Christine mentioned that we're starting in person in September. So we'll be meeting in room 235 at McIntyre. So it's going to be extra important to let Christine know if you aren't going to make it or you are, so that we don't have, folks coming in when we don't have a quorum. So that will be happening. There won't be any virtual option to join. I wanted to share that I had mentioned earlier that I worked on a resolution for the county to support the Department of Wildlife Resources efforts to reintroduce the James spiny mussel to the James River in Albemarle County. And so it's really exciting. They are going to do a release later this month. And I don't think there's any, public event planned around it right now. It's sort of dependent on the river conditions. So it's hard to set the day, but that's really exciting. And, hopefully we can keep track of that and see how they do. So they'll be releasing a couple thousand mussels into the river at 4 different locations, I think. And I'm going to try to go along and join so I can get a firsthand view of that. So that's exciting. And then another thing I wanted to report on is I've been working with CAPE and also in coordination with Cooperative Extension on some coordinated spotted lanternfly outreach efforts this month. So we did a spot on NBC 29, and we now have a spotted lanternfly page for the county that helps direct folks to where they can go to learn more about the quarantine and how you get a permit. And then also how to report spotted lanternfly to VCE. So mostly our website is just directing folks out to those other places, but just a central place to have all that information. And I presented yesterday an update to the board on the Stream Health Initiative. So if you have any interest in that, you can watch once the recording is posted. And, I'm happy to have any discussion about that. If there are specific things that you want to talk about there.
I did have a question from.
And then.
I did have a question about that. Someone had asked me, and so I think you clarified this in your presentation, but the stream overlay, actually, I guess now it's called the, is it the, yeah, you came up with a different name for it, but it's proposal 1, the stream health, stream overlay district.
It's the same. We just changed it to riparian because it applies to rivers and, wetlands as well. So it's not just specific to streams.
Yeah, it's a much better name. Anyway, someone had asked, is the proposal that this would only apply to the rural area, or would this also apply to the growth area?
Right now, it's still in development, but it would apply. We're not proposing to change where stream buffers apply in the county. So
Okay,
it's the same as where they currently apply.
Yeah, so it would apply everywhere the water protection ordinance currently applies.
Correct.
That's great. Thanks. That's the only question.
Of course, it's still in development, so that might change, but we're not proposing to change it at this time.
And what is the timeline for that? When do you think that draft ordinance will be before the Board of Supervisors?
Yeah, it's a good question. I expected to get yesterday. We hopefully will be able to bring it to the Planning Commission this fall, and then likely to the board in the spring. There's going to be some, public input, opportunities for public input in between there as well.
Great, thanks.
Quick question about access to meetings. Will there not be a way for someone to listen to the meetings, or I mean, I can understand no participation, but there's not going to be any connectivity of any kind. We're just going cold turkey.
That's right. And I actually confirmed that today because at our last meeting, Christine, you had said something about like calling in or, something different for SWAC, and that should not be for SWAC either. I guess and if the old way of, folks potentially calling in is, with COVID, I think there was a reevaluation of FOIA and the rules, and that's just not something that is legal. So if we have to have a physical quorum in the room. And we also just don't
I'm
have
asking also to
staffing to have
listen.
hybrid meetings. So that might change in the future, but currently what this committee and all of the committees at this tier will be meeting in person only, and they're open to public. So the public may also come and meet in person.
But someone can't listen to the meeting if they're housebound or something like that.
Right.
Thanks for the info.
Michael, did you have a question?
Yes, are we going to continue to have the working group meetings prior to the main meeting? And will that be in person on the same day?
So,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
I think it depends on the working group. And so I was going to propose for the education and outreach that we meet just prior at the county office building.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're right. We won't have a Zoom option for those work groups either. They have to meet in person and be open to the public as normal. So I just had one more update, which is that Candace, Candace Perkins, who was our planning director for just a brief time, has left, and we have Charles Rapp as our new old planning director who has moved back into that position. So Charles Rapp is again the planning director going forward. So I just wanted to share that news, and that is all I have, unless folks have more questions for me. You're
Okay.
muted. Oh.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be fun to meet in person, but I know for me, it's, getting in the car. It'll add some extra time, but I can see how really important it is for people to let me know, just to confirm that you're going to be present at the meeting. And I'll send out that email asking for confirmation. So especially if we cannot we can't meet unless we have a quorum, so that we'd have to have 6 people there. All right, so Kim, could you share the annual report, the draft of it? That's the next thing on the
I
agenda.
can. Michael, oh, you put your hand down. Okay, just double checking.
Well, I did because I thought you were going to go on. I just want to remind you that the invites that go out to all of us say Zoom. So are you going to redo those and resend those? Or do away with them altogether?
Well, that's a good question. I think the only reason that the email invite goes out is because of the Zoom link. So I wasn't here before, but did you have an invite before? No. Okay.
I actually would encourage, I mean, I like the invites because it puts it in my calendar.
Yeah, but it
Um,
wouldn't say Zoom. It would just be an.
Yeah, it doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to say Zoom, but just getting an iCalendar invite is really helpful to me, because then it goes in my calendar, it goes right on my phone. And so if it doesn't enter my calendar, it doesn't exist.
And McIntyre's the county building downtown, right? Correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I've not been there, but thank you.
So I use Google Calendar. Do you want me I can make a meeting for everybody? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, that'd be helpful to me.
Okay.
Yeah, me as well.
All right. Then-
Yeah, I don't use Google Cal. I use Outlook, but just
Yeah,
I have it on my I have,
It'll integrate if you just send a calendar invite from whatever program to everyone's email.
yeah, just send it to email.
Yeah, and then if you can do me a favor and confirm right there and then whether you're gonna make it.
I have it on my phone, a reminder every first
Yeah.
Thursday.
I do too.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, so this is I hope that everybody did take some time to look at this and also to confirm the attendance. And so there it is. And-
Okay,
All right, so just make sure that it looks right. And of course, we had some older members, we've had some changes in the committee. And also, I think that we should also consider if someone's attendance drops, I think that everybody really should be able to commit to making most of the meetings. And so that's one thing that we've done with our SWAC.
Mhm.
We've just sort of everybody committed to at least making 9 out of those 12 meetings a year. And if that can't happen, then probably we need to evaluate whether it makes sense to be on the committee, especially when it's so important for us to meet and being able to have a quorum. So I just want to throw that out here right now.
Christine, I was present at 2 or maybe 3 meetings that aren't marked on that. And I'm not sure if that's because I wasn't official yet.
I think that is the reason why is once you became official, I know that you were there. You listened, you were there as a
Yeah.
guest. And so,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know, maybe Kim, we can put that in there somehow, or if they're just interested in the
I don't
official.
think there's any recording of attendance aside from those who are actually on the committee.
Yeah. So it's just.
So I do record them in the minutes, but I don't think that
Not official.
that's the intent of this report, right?
Yeah. But thank you, Abigail, for being there above and beyond. All right, well, we're going to move on down. So what they were looking for is the attendance of the members and then a summary of what we've accomplished. And I actually thought it was, for me, a really great process because sometimes you lose track of what has been accomplished. And I think that we can feel proud of the things that we have accomplished here. And so one of the reasons I had asked everybody to take a careful look at it is that if I've missed anything or anything needs to be corrected, that you really do so. And so, there may be the possibility that I have missed some items. So
Christine, did you see I did email you.
yeah, and I did add, so you can, if you can pull up the document yourself as well, but
Sure.
I just added what you said.
That's fine.
I didn't.
I was just, in case you wanted to, is all I was suggesting.
Yeah, and I added it. I just didn't expand upon it. And I welcome you to do that.
Okay.
And actually I sent it to everybody as a Google Doc. So it was great because Leah she's done a lot with wildlife corridors and she wrote it out. It was great. So it was really nice to see that. So I just want to encourage you. Well, one thing that needs to happen is that we're going to vote on this today, approve it.
Mhm.
And that needs to happen. So if you have some additions, we should throw them in right now. Michael.
I think it would be helpful if, under education, I think it's the 3rd bullet where we talk about the partnership with Piedmont Master Gardeners and the village school and Historical Society. We say a native plant demonstration pocket garden was created, but we don't say where. And I think it would be helpful to note the location of that in the kiosk.
Okay. Gosh, how should we handle this, Kim?
Christine, do you want me to just add that now?
Do you
I
mind?
can add it while you're talking, or I can add a comment and then you can also approve the report and along with authorizing Christine to make these final changes, which I would maybe recommend since it's hard to edit a document in this context, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna make that addition. Is that okay? Does everybody feel comfortable with that? I think that's what we actually did last year.
I say so.
Yeah, I have a suggestion as well, for the policy section. Some of those policy items, we actually have Google Docs. I mean, I wonder if it'd be appropriate to put a link to the policy document in question.
You know, one thing that was really clear is they didn't want to link to the minutes. So I think it's just a snapshot.
Oh, okay.
And so I think if you can add a brief description of that.
Yeah, they just does seem to be a little bit short. I don't know.
Yeah, but
maybe-
you know, Lonnie, that's the reason why I sent this out a week ago.
Yeah.
And asked for people to make additions to it.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And I mean, I would prefer that there was some description of what happened there myself. Is there anything else?
Looks good.
Yeah. Lonnie, can you add a description?
Yes. I can add descriptions to some of those. I have some questions about the land use one, but I think you were one of the
And
people.
we can take that out. Actually, it's up to you. I was just sort of brainstorming, thinking, what are some of the policy things we talked about? And I just wanted to move things forward, so I added those items.
Oh, it is true. I mean, it's a topic that we talked about. I just don't think we got to the level of having a draft policy document about it.
Yeah, so I would love nothing better than for the policy people to edit those items or to make the additions.
Yep. Sounds.
Lonnie, is it possible that you can do that now?
I can get it to you maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. Or we could vote on it with the understanding that you're going to be adding the description of the work done.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, I guess I could. I would just say, of course, I don't have the document in front of me, but I mean, I'd say paving rural roads. It's more like, instead of paving rural roads, it's more strategy to protect gravel roads that are important for historic natural resources and natural and recreational resources.
Great. Kate's in there working on it. Thank you.
And we could say worked with shoot, what is the group that works on that? There's actually a whole seminar that was produced on this topic thanks to us, with PEC and also the Loudoun County. So we actually got representatives of Loudoun County to come and do a joint presentation about their efforts to protect gravel roads. I don't know how to phrase that, but.
All right. Can
And
I
then
leave
spring-
that for you and Kate to
Sure. I
make
will-
those additions and
And I will say those last two items, I would say you could combine into one and just said, provided input on the county's stream health protection initiative.
yeah, and I actually have that later on in here, I sort of broke it up into the work that we're doing and then feedback to staff and feedback to the Board of Supervisors. And I did mention, I don't know if maybe Kim, do you mind scrolling down? You can see what I did. So I sort of listed the feedback and the provided Board of Supervisors in terms of letters on specific topics, and then feedback provided to staff. And I think I included that stream protection, like bearing streams. We could also add there if you wanted to.
Yeah, it could be added as well.
Like, what do you want to add there to bearing streams? The
Added recommendations to prevent stream removal.
okay.
I mean, proposed recommendations to prevent stream removal.
Kate, do you mind? Can you edit that?
I'm still trying to deal with stuff in the policy section. Where are we going down to?
Oh,
Just send-
sorry. We're in bearing streams, feedback to staff, feedback provided to staff.
Oh, we're just saying that we could take some of that also should apply in the policy section.
Okay.
And
Yeah, that looks great.
you can always just copy that line and repeat it in the policy section.
Thanks, Kate. Nothing like typing in front of everybody, right? All right. All right. Are there any other comments? Or things that I've missed or additions that should be made? Anyhow, I think everybody should pat themselves on the back. I think that we have been able to accomplish some things, and hopefully in the coming year, we will be able to continue that. And then challenges, and I just want to thank Leah. Leah put this out here in pink, and Kate gave it a thumbs up. So lack of adequate technology, internet connections for members, participation in Zoom meetings. Is that Leah, maybe you can help with that difficulty with the members not being able to connect, and how, is that what you were conveying?
I'm sorry, which one? I was rereading it. Are you talking about the interpretation of the FOIA?
Yeah, well, lack of adequate technology, internet.
That even though the county is focusing on better build out for broadband, because so many areas of the county are rural, so many citizens and therefore committee members don't have good access to technology that would allow them to participate by Zoom. So it wasn't that the county's system isn't good, it's that there isn't great broadband access throughout the county. So in a way, that's a plug for the county to continue to provide incentives for providers to, well, gosh, I hate to say it, that means more cell towers, but to build out technology or to have some kind of options for technology. I mean, maybe if we were to continue with Zoom calls, then I think something that, I don't know if it was Michael maybe had mentioned at one point, that it would be nice if there was like it might have been nice to have an option for people, committee members to go to be able to use the resources to connect with Zoom. I mean, you'd think that if the county wants committee members to attend meetings and they don't have access to the internet, or there are even times, like there was a couple of times I think we missed meetings because power was out in places, if we could have gone somewhere to have access.
I don't know if this belongs in here in that frame. In that, when you mentioned cell towers, that's not a broadband thing, that's a Wi-Fi over. We're talking two different sides of the coin. And I personally am very against cell towers. That's a Wi-Fi standard. That's not broadband. Broadband is going to be wired. So I think we're getting into something that could be used in ways that we don't necessarily approve of.
Well, I think if it's generic about just adequate technology, and actually my broadband is beamed, not from a cell tower, but from an office building to get to my house. So it's not cable, it's not underground, it's not fiber.
Right, but it should be like the advocacy should be for wired availability for everybody, because that's reliable. So I personally don't want to get us anywhere near any of that, because of the concern that this is a public document at this point, and this is a statement that the community, a statement that our group is making. So I just don't want it to be misused, is all I'm saying.
Okay, is there a way to merge something about that with the overly restrictive interpretation of FOIA requirements? Because
they're very different things.
Well, but they were interconnected, because it became difficult to meet, not only because of FOIA, but because of having to set up the Zoom meetings and doing the notifications for the Zoom meeting. Well, I guess notifications would have been the same, wouldn't it? Whether they were live or Zoom. Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah. So I would probably I'd probably rephrase that a bit. I mean, I would say, I think maybe COVID protocols for remote meetings, and along with FOIA requirements, complicated the ability for subcommittees to meet, or something like that.
I would prefer that the FOIA requirement be standalone, because that on its own, the interpretation of that is what has solely prevented a lot of meeting. Technology notwithstanding is a separate issue that may be related to where someone individually lives. It certainly is related to what resources state and county can do to help expand access for people, but they're not the same.
Yeah, I'm just saying that like, if we didn't have to schedule Carolyn to be there to have the remote video, like the Zoom thing, then we still could have met and kept minutes. And
right, but that's not related to us having broadband access or not.
So
that's related to restrictive interpretation of FOIA.
So let's go ahead. If let's just do these one at a time. So I think that granted, there are challenges. We've all had challenges with power outages, whatever. So there were, some challenges with the Zoom meeting, just like there can be challenges driving into town too. But there were some technology challenges. Can we just do that with the Zoom meetings? I think all of us had some technology challenges to begin with. I also think that there are some real positive things that can come of having a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I think, there were good aspects too, for all of us. And
that's what I'm concerned with the misinterpretation is. I would rather Zoom continue, because I may not even be able to continue to do this.
Yeah.
And that there are going to be times when I cannot get to a meeting. I could do it on the phone. So I think technology or COVID, or I don't even know, access. But, I think there was a whole lot of good to go with these meetings. I mean, our cars not being on the road is a very, natural heritage, climate change positive thing, and that all of us are not driving somewhere. That's an hour that I'm not on the road today.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's just, I don't know, I don't want to comment, but it is a shame that, for other larger boards and organizations, the ability to do a certain number of hybrid meetings per year is possible. Like, you can, it's a shame that's not a continuing option for this committee.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree too. And I just want to give Abigail and Michael a chance to comment because you guys have had your hands up. Abigail.
Hey, I have a couple of pieces of input. One, I think is the third item, so I can wait on that. But yeah, I would agree that technology and access to technology has, at least for me, like been such a boon in the past couple of years. And to go back to being fully in person, it seems like a huge disservice to a lot of our population who may not be able to leave their house for a variety of reasons. It seems like a very exclusionary policy. And so I'm really curious why the county thinks that's best. I can understand why committee members would be in person, but also it seems like we're very practiced now at having discussions on this particular medium. And I agree with what Kate says, like, even if your house maybe doesn't have great technology, like there are places within walking distance where I can go to a public space and have internet. And so it seems really easy and accessible to just participate in general.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Abigail. Did you want to, I'm wondering if, should we just, maybe while we're on that topic, we'll stick with that and we'll go back to your earlier comment. How's that sound? And Michael, did you have a comment on this, the issue around technology?
Not specific about technology, one was format, but the other was trying to ensure we are achieving the goals of the BAP in this report.
Okay.
I can
Hold on to that. Hold
add
on
something
to
else
that.
to that, or, okay, fine.
Yeah, let's make sure that we're holding on to that. But I just want to, Leah, how are you feeling about you brought that up. Do you want to keep it in there, or how are you feeling about that?
Well, a couple of things. I was wondering if it would help instead of saying lack of adequate technology, if we said something about like a need for better technology, something like that. But we're part of what we've just been talking about is what I'm hearing people say is they'd like to be able to continue having some internet options or technological options for meeting rather than meeting in person. But this document is about the past year in review. As I understand it, it's not about things we need coming up, but maybe there's a way to do both together by saying something about the need for improving technology. I don't know. Kate, what do you think? Or improving access.
Yeah, I
Maybe
love
access
yes.
is the word.
Well, I think access is important. The way it's written, I see that someone could look at it and read, oh, they are desperate to meet in person. When what I think we're all saying is meeting in person is awesome, but it is also a barrier for certain people to be a part of it. So access, if we can use the word access, and probably instead of lack of adequate technology, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how to get from. I don't think it's adequate technology, and just because I don't think the county has necessarily the ability to change the broadband landscape. Like, I think that in that they have agreements and the state is working, and the state and county are together, have funding mechanisms out there that are closing gaps, like with Firefly and such. But I think that it's more important for us to talk about the access.
Okay, so what about need for better access to what? To participate in meet for
participation, maybe,
and members to meet?
Maybe it's for public and member participation, or continuing need to assess ability for members and public to adequately participate.
I like that statement. Kate, would you be willing to stick that in there? How do you feel, Leah, and others about that?
Yeah, I wrote down kind of a shorter version of that because what I can do. Need for better access for citizens and members to participate in meetings, something like that.
I like that. And that almost addresses.
I
both.
like the use of the word continuous in front of need because it implies an ongoing. As you said, this is both a statement of the past, as well as potential challenges for the future. And if we say continuous need, then we can allude to things that people have brought up, like the ability to call in to a meeting, etc., without that being a FOIA requirement.
So
So
So continuous need for better access for citizens and members to participate in meetings.
that sounds great.
Yeah, I think that gets us there, because that, I think, really gets to what we're experiencing and seeing in the future.
Kate, do you mind throwing that in?
Oh,
I wrote it down. I can text it to, or, well, actually, yeah, or I can email if you want me to email it to.
if you have it, Leah, email me and I'll put it in right now.
Okay.
All right, fantastic.
All
And
right,
then,
so I'd like to address that last one.
well, can we just go down overly restrictive interpretation of FOIA requirements can we change that to work group meetings? And will everybody be satisfied with that?
Can we go ahead and bulletize those they're easier to follow as you do these changes?
I don't know if this needs to be added to the FOIA requirement piece, but as a new committee member and someone who's also new to
Thank you.
government participation in this way, I have found it extremely hard to be onboarded because this context here is really my only way of interacting with folks. And to my understanding, we can only get together if 6 of us can gather and a clerk, and we publicly announced it. And that just seems like a huge barrier to any kind of collaborative work. There are projects I would really like to take on and participate in, but I don't feel like I have the expertise or the knowledge to spearhead those projects. And so I actually can do nothing because there's no context for collaboration. And so I think that, I guess that's the FOIA requirements, but it's no
FOIA
wonder things don't get done.
FOIA does not require that a clerk be present. That's a county thing. And I think that was I think to me, that was one of the big hurdles, was that, you had to have the whole, and I see that more of a COVID. I mean, I would almost say overly restrictive interpretation of COVID/FOIA requirements, because really it was the combination of those two things that were the problem, and not FOIA by itself. Because I mean, prior to that, we had subcommittee meetings all the time. But they were in person, so we didn't have to arrange for like the whole Zoom thing. We still had to do public notice, but we didn't have to have, like Carolyn, but it's, if it's just another person you have to schedule around.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it would just be nice to actually be able to work together. I feel like the meetings are often talking about what we've done and getting feedback and voting, but there isn't really an opportunity to work. And I would like to have the ability to work together.
Yeah, I think we all would.
absolutely. So we're good. Everybody's okay with overly restrictive FOIA and COVID restrictions. And then the last one,
Yeah, just add in COVID to that next bullet point, and it would be good. And now the last one, I feel like I have a new insight from being on the planning commission. It seems like, I don't think it's necessarily that staff don't want or understand our expertise or role. It's that I think that the way the system is structured, they're limited into the kind of input that they can accept. And I think I think it's a challenge for us that our committee's responsibility isn't more clearly articulated in terms of when and how we should be providing input to staff on important decisions. Because if that was clearly articulated, then I think there would be more opportunities for this committee to provide input. For example, there's a recent, they're recently talking about, the RIO plan, and, and there was, in one of the conversations that came up in the last board supervisor meetings was stormwater management and including native plants and things like roundabouts. It would have been excellent if the people doing that plan, if it was expressly part of this made clear to staff that when people are doing plans like that, that someone comes back and checks with Kim, or there's some avenue for us to provide input to say, yes, when, we should include better stormwater management, inclusion of native plants. It seems the public caught on that kind of thing was missing, but there's no avenue for us to provide that kind of input.
Well, I actually really agree with that because I feel like there is, it's hard to know when it is appropriate and how it's hard to keep up with everything. And, that's not Kim's job. And also there's that sort of delineation, right? So it's hard to know. I think the way you worded it was really nicely, Lonnie. Can you say it again?
Okay, I can try. I would say that since it's phrased as a challenge, I would say we need it more clearly articulated within county policy about when staff should come to us for input on various topics.
Lonnie, I was trying to make notes because I agree with Kate, with Christine. What she said before is like awesome.
Yeah, I've awesome.
Yeah, I know you are. You're awesome. It's hard. Anyway, you mentioned articulated, but it is a process. I kind of wrote down, and I'm just playing here. We need a clearer process for either, and I don't know whether it's for NHC to give staff input or a clearer process for staff to receive input, or maybe it's both.
It's both. I think a clearer process for the NHC to provide and for staff to receive input on important decisions.
To receive input about what kind of decisions, though? About conservation or environmental decisions?
Natural, I would say decisions that impact natural resources.
And biodiversity, maybe. For input about decisions, input, to receive input on decisions about, about resources. Sorry, yes, I'm just sort of taking over here, but I'm trying to modify.
No, that's perfect.
I just threw those things. I had just thrown those things out there because they were all, I didn't worry about wording it because I figured we need to figure out how did we want to say all these things because they're touchy issues.
Yeah, and I don't want to, and because I've seen a lot of situations where staff would love to receive our input.
Yeah,
but
I feel like the staff has received it well and take into consideration the things that we have said. And but I agree that sometimes it's difficult to know when it is appropriate. And Kim does a great job in keeping us informed, but she can't say, well, this is the time you guys need to speak up necessarily, right? That's kind of on us, and that's a hard thing for us to keep track of. And if like Kim had more leeway to say to us, this is when we need you, that would be helpful, I think.
I mean, I would kind of like to see, small area plans and stuff when people are coming up with. I know it would be a lot more work for people in this committee, but when there are, major planning decisions that are coming forward and people are saying, well, here's a big map of, where we're going to do the greenways and everything in Crozet, or, this is what streetscapes are going to be looking like in the Rio district. I sort of feel like we should maybe glance at those materials and say, oh, here's some information about how we can improve this to, in terms of the impact on natural resources and biodiversity. Some way of providing input through that lens,
At one point, we talked about how it'd be valuable, or we wondered if would be valuable to have some kind of a checklist, or rather add NHC in on checklists that might already be being used in the planning process, to be sure that, I don't want to say that we're consulted, because, we're not experts in everything for sure.
But I love that idea, Leah, because that gets to using citizen resources. Like, this is a resource group that staff could say, hey, we're having this trouble. Does anybody here have any input? It should be a benefit.
Yeah, and I like the idea of a checklist, and I think we have a precedent for that with the, and actually, I don't know if this is in here, maybe this was in last year's, but maybe Kim could answer this. The revision to the plant list, the recommended plant list, this committee participated in that process too, to get the county has a recommended plant list for developers, and it was full of invasive species. And so we, working with Rep Gladley, and I know Kim spent some time on this, and that list was revised based upon the input of this committee so that we're recommending more native plants and we're not recommending invasive species.
I spent a lot of time on that list too, and also with what's his name, who hasn't been to the meetings lately.
Kenan.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I mean, I think that's an example of a kind of checklist that's used by community development that does have an impact on natural resources and biodiversity. And so I think, there could be precedents for other kinds of checklists too, or other kinds of materials that we could perhaps provide to community development and other people doing reviews.
Well, I just want to also remind you, everyone on this committee, that Kim has asked us for feedback on a couple different things. One, and I did create those Google Docs for them, like parks, county parks, and what the invasive plants found in county parks, and also for the updated, oh gosh, what was it? It had to do with landscape practices. And so, those opportunities have existed, and I created that Google Doc. But as I was looking back at the Google Doc, maybe that's on me, that I did send it out, but we didn't get a lot of feedback from it. So I think there have been opportunities that perhaps we have not followed through with as well as we could have.
Yeah, and there are opportunities and challenges there for sure.
So it's on us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I like the language as it is right there, clear process for the NHC to provide for staff and receive input on natural resource and biodiversity issues. I think that's great.
Yeah, so there were two things: the sustainable operations update, and also invasive plants in the county parks. I just want to remind you that those two documents exist, and really would love to get feedback from others, and I will resend them out to you.
Christine, can we take a minute to hear what Lonnie has noticed about interacting with county staff? Because I've always been a bit confused, because I know most of the county staff, or almost pretty much every county staff I've ever interacted with, has been very pro environmental protection, wanting to see adequate or appropriate protections worked into the planning process. But then things don't happen. And I'm sure part of it's because people are overworked, but I would love to know what other things might be going on that we just don't know about. Is that okay to take a couple minutes for Lonnie to tell us?
Yeah, so there's some weird things about chain of command, that they have a whole process by which, like, so, you know, I, like many of you, know people in various departments, and it seems like you should be like a member of this committee should be able to call up a member of staff and say, I have this great idea for this thing that should be done, but there's this whole, they have this whole chain of command they have to go through to actually implement something. And particularly, as a planning commission member, like, staff can't even directly communicate with me anymore, which is weird. Like, I have to go through their supervisors or their supervisors. And then when, in planning commission meetings, like, you know, if there's a development proposal in front of us, it says vaguely that one of the criteria that we can use in terms of whether we should approve or deny a proposal for rezoning is its impact on natural resources, but it doesn't spell out what natural resources means. And since it's not spelled out, as a planning commission member, I can't provide that input to the applicant, say, well, this doesn't meet the county's criteria for natural resource protection because it's not spelled out what that means. Now, in terms of other requirements, like, we say, well, you know, you have to have sidewalks, you have to have, you know, curb and gutter, you have to have, all that stuff is spelled out. So, you know, so unless you explicitly say, this is an avenue by which the Natural Heritage Committee can provide input that actually matters to a decision, when it comes to making that decision, if it's too vague, it doesn't really apply. Like, you can't, neither staff nor other decision makers can really use that input. Does that help?
It helps me.
All right. Thank you,
I
Lonnie.
would like to add and decisions to the third bullet. Clearer, oh, I see, clearer process for the NHG to provide and for staff to receive input on natural resources and biodiversity issues and decisions.
Okay, that sounds great. I just want to make sure I've got Abigail and Michael, you have your hand up, and Bruce, do you want to comment on this? Abigail?
Yeah,
Sure, I'll
I
go.
had, I'll go.
Okay,
I'm happy with the way things are written. The challenges, I have an insight, maybe it's an insight, with the reason why it's difficult for the committee and the staff to interact the way we or the staff might like us to. And that's just because that's the staff's job. They have to put in their 40 or 50 or whatever hours a week, and they're going back and forth between projects and whatnot. And we have to have a quorum in order to put out what we think. So if one of us, for example, has something we'd like to say to the staff, then officially we're speaking as a private citizen, not as the Natural Heritage Committee. So there's the structure of the committee. You know, we meet once a month, and any more than that, we'd have to, you know, all the things that we have to do in order to have a meeting are required. So there's a lot of clunkiness built in unless we were actually working as a staff person giving information. So although it's easy, it might be tempting to think, well, I know a lot about box turtles, so why don't they just ask me whenever there's a question about box turtles? The reality is I don't work for the county, I'm a member of the Heritage Committee, and so if I'm going to provide information, it has to kind of filter to us the right way. So that's just kind of an insight. I like the way it's written because I agree it is a challenge, and I think it's going to be a challenge just because of the structures that exist, being committee members or staff people.
And Bruce, you're absolutely right. And then the other side of that is, we can't, for us to provide input, we need a quorum of people to meet and decide that issue and then provide that input. But there's also, from the other side, there's not a clear mechanism for staff to know when or how to request our input, so that we can build that quorum to develop that policy to provide that information back. So it's sort of like a two-way conundrum, and you can have sort of a chicken egg thing going on there, right?
Yeah, I agreed. I'm going to keep us moving here, Abigail, and then Mike, especially if you have something related to this, the challenges right here.
Yeah, I guess mine are more like solutions. But in terms of Bruce's comment, I think that's a really big challenge. And I wonder if it would be possible for us to have a quorum vote on who would be participating in a general consensus. And then for that person to be able to work as a representative of the committee and then come back later to get a full quorum when something is decided within that development group. But also so far right now, we're talking about like the early process of a lot of policy of when things are getting developed. And that's definitely a very important part for us to be involved in. But I would also like to see something on the tail end when policies are putting in place where we have some sort of approval vote, yes or no. Obviously, I don't think it would make sense for a no vote to hold up any policies, but to have that more as a way of tracking whether this action taken by the county is in line with an action plan that they have already accepted. So we will have that marked as our recommendation.
Could we shift that to somehow get that into the process early enough that negative sort of, hey, this doesn't meet these things you've already approved, so hey, let's try to do better. I'd love to take that sentiment that you've just shared and say, hey, let's push back on this somehow so that we can make this better, and not because otherwise you're waiting for how many years to potentially redo something. Once it's gotten to that point, it's over. So I love your idea.
I think that's what
go backwards.
Again, I think that's why it's important to have both. I'm not saying to not do the early stuff, but from what I've seen so far of this committee, I mean, they don't really take our considerations into consideration. And so I would just like to see some way of showing the public, we provided input on this and it was not accepted. And so in that way, maybe we can get more of the public involved to say, hey, why are you not listening to the Natural Heritage Committee? We want this to be more important in the development of policy.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Mike, did you want to add something to this?
Yes, what I was going to say, I was going to offer a statement, and I'll just throw this out. Assure committee members have the opportunity to engage with staff and other committees on issues being developed, worked, and solutions for implementation. Now, in my municipal experience as a councilman, committees didn't gain or didn't have much weight unless they voted on something and forwarded a majority decision to a town manager or to a department head to get something done. And to my knowledge, we've not done that. Now, maybe that happens individually, Christine, when you write a letter and you send it to the supervisors, that's one thing. And maybe you get input from us, but there's no assurance that we're going to have an opportunity to do this. It's kind of a hit and miss experience in terms of getting something done. And I would just suggest that we find a way to that the committee members would be assured. Now, whether that assurance comes from the supervisors or it comes from the county executive, I don't know. But majority votes seem to carry more weight than individuals trying to get something done, even as representatives. Votes are essentially by the citizens. We're voting as citizens, appointed by the supervisors. So we do have a purpose. We do have a legislated purpose. And so if the purpose of that is to get decisions organized and coordinated and implemented, then I think the way we do that is through the voting majority vote process and get that to the right person, which could be the county executive, it could be the supervisor.
Yeah,
That's-
Michael, those are really good thoughts. I think another thing that just occurred to me too is there are often in a lot of these various decisions, they have committees that are formed for public input. Imagine, for example, Kim mentioned when they developed the riparian buffer overlay district, that there's going to be some sort of public input process. Typically in those processes, you'll see they will reach out to the Farm Bureau. They'll have someone from like the Piedmont Environmental Council. That they're sort of standard people that always seem to be there. And it seems like it should be standard for the county for there always to be a natural heritage committee member in those kinds of public input meetings. In the comp plan process rewrite, it seems like I'm a little disappointed. There doesn't seem to be so far a natural heritage committee seat in that process, right? As they form these various committees that are making decisions about the growth management policy, for example, there's not explicitly someone from the Natural Heritage Committee in that room as those are being discussed. We're just members of the public chiming in as members of the public. So it seems like just reserving a seat for us for some of these important decisions to just be in the room, I think is very important. But we're kind of going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
No,
Thank
I
you.
love that idea. I think that's fantastic. Just really quickly. If is there a way to put something into this document to request for the future, something like that to be included in, various situations? I'm sorry, but if the Farm Bureau is going to be consulted, we should have been consulted prior to that.
Yeah,
One
I
thing.
agree. I'm not sure this document is the right place to put it. I'm not opposed to
cool.
being in this document, but I do think it should be in our we are revising the biodiversity action plan, and that is, I think, is a very appropriate place for it to go.
And then separately, isn't the acquisition of conservation easements document and the synthetic turf document, aren't those documents that we put together collectively and voted on and submitted to the supervisors?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so those
Okay.
those are examples of where we did vote as a committee.
Yep.
And so that does happen. Kim, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to something Abigail said, because I think that this, I'm not opposed to developing some sort of process, and I think this is a really interesting conversation. And there's a few different areas where it seems the group wants to provide impact, to or input rather to specific projects, and then more at the policy level. And I think at the policy level, the county does work hard to engage the community, and we have the whole engagement department. And so those opportunities, as are open to anyone. But like Abigail said, I think, and you all maybe know more about the process than I do, that this committee could vote to designate a representative to participate. So like Lonnie participated in the Stream Health Initiative, just like the Farm Bureau members did. He was participating, I guess, as a citizen, but if you voted to designate him to speak on behalf of the committee, I think that is something you can do. And Christine, I think, is participating in the comp plan process, right? So when those opportunities arise, maybe that's a way to achieve the goal that you have. And then I also just wanted to note that if there are specific initiatives or projects that you're interested in that I can, connect you with the right staff, I'm happy to try to do that as best I can. Like we had, Margaret come to talk about the lighting ordinance, which is not scheduled right now, but I think she's aware of your concerns and has noted them. So when the time comes for that to be updated, she knows that this group wants to be involved in that. And so if there's, those types of connections that I can make for this group, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, and I just want to comment that, Kim, you have really been very responsive to any of those. I mean, you have made it happen, getting those staff here at our meeting. So I really appreciate that. And I just also want to add, when we say designating somebody to represent the NHC, for example, with the comp plan update, that's more than one person. That's really asking a lot of one person. So I just want to say that we, all of us, each one of us on this committee needs to engage in that process. And it, you go to the whole the county's got the whole website. They're constantly asking for input. And I just want to encourage each and every one of us to say, as a member of the Natural Heritage Committee appointed by the Board of Supervisors, blank, whatever it is. And of course, designating somebody would be fine, but that's also a lot to ask of a single person to represent the whole group. And it could happen if somebody's willing to do that. But I think that I just want to make a plug for everybody to be more engaged.
Well, but designating a person doesn't necessarily guarantee you a seat. There's been several decisions where they have a finite number of official advisory committee members that are created for a given decision. And, certainly as members of the public, we can all apply to be on that, one of those people. But I think it would be better if we could be, after we designate someone, or either after or before, if there could be expressly a seat for us. There's the plan commission meetings for, not planning, sorry, the comprehensive plan meetings. There's a finite list of participants in each of those groups. And that's great, Christine, that you're able to get in on one of those. And I was
No,
able to,
I'm not in one of those groups.
oh,
I'm not in. I have simply tried to add e-comment, follow it, fill out the surveys, that sort of thing. So I would not part of any of those working groups.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying is this working groups, why shouldn't we have expressly had a Natural Heritage Committee member, at least on one of those working groups?
And I think that what they were looking towards is they feel like our voice as the NH is represented, and they were looking for more underrepresented. I think that was part of the thinking.
If I may, though, they've accepted everybody who applied to the working group. So I don't think there is a finite number. That was, originally perhaps the plan, but everybody who had applied has been accepted to that. So anyone who wants to participate could participate in the comp plan process.
Do you think that's still open, Kim?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I did get on one, but it's very, very late in the process. I got on the prioritization committee. So if the process is for me, since I managed to apply and get on that, if the committee wants to designate me, I'm perfectly willing to accept that.
Leah.
I wanted to thank everybody for all their input that they're all giving, because I think that a lot of what we're talking about gets to the root of what is the role of the committee and what can we really do. And I don't think that any of us want to be spending our time on this committee unless we're able to help affect some positive change or some positive progress. So I'm glad we're discussing all of this. And Lonnie, I would say we should go on and add something here under challenges about NHC not having a seat at the table. And I think that that's a good visual concept to even use those words, like NHC has no seat at the table. And I'm not sure how you write the rest of that, but like for, I don't know, is it participating in county subgroups? I don't know what that is. But one of the things that I wonder about is, do county staff realize, as some of the people on our own committee may not realize, when you look at our charter or our, like the BAP even, we are supposed to be, the committee is supposed to be advisors to the BOS. And I don't feel that we are. I'm not even fully comfortable on that. Like if somebody asked me to go and speak to the BOS about one of these issues, I'd have to really, really pull it together. So if don't even feel like we're really advisors, surely county staff don't feel like we're designated. That's our role.
Michael.
What I was going to suggest is that if and when we do begin to participate in, Christine and I talked about this prior to this meeting, about my participation as a planner in one area or the other or another. There is certainly an opportunity to take to these meetings a majority vote statement on whatever issue is coming up or needs to be resolved, or to help work on something where our input would be beneficial. There's nothing that would prohibit us from doing that, unless, Kim, you're aware of the fact that as a committee, we don't have status in any of this process. We have to approach this as an individual. If we are recognized as a committee and participate in this process, then we should be able to submit something that becomes a public document, or could be considered a public document in terms of what we're trying to influence or to make happen. In other words, I would be prepared to go following whatever decision is made on our committee and submit that at a working group meeting or at something that's even more formal, so that we get our input in there. It's one thing to go to a meeting and have dialogue, but it's another to take something on paper and submit it. The other comment I was going to make, Christine, earlier was, I think it would be beneficial, and we could look at this in the future, if we try to tie the inputs that we make for the report back to the BAP. What of these things that we did or claiming to have done accomplishes something in the BAP, so that the supervisors can see that the BAP is useful and we're working towards resolving whatever issue is before us in the BAP, whatever goal, objectives, tasks, that kind of thing, we can tie what we put in the report to that.
Yeah.
All right, so there are a couple things here. I can go back and I can add reference the chapter and the recommendations for each of those items that are on there to the BAP. Michael, maybe you'd like to help me with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then for this last statement, I actually don't feel comfortable with NHC has no seat at the table, because
I was just writing as you guys were talking, so
yeah,
please
I mean, I
edit.
just
Didn't want to lose it.
I appreciate that you said that, because I just think that statement, no seat at the table, is a little strong. And maybe we would like to have a
Consistent seat at the table.
consistent or
and I would say specifically for work groups, I think often they say, oh, well, you had a voice, you could attend as a member of the public. But you have this designated work group, and then the NHC has to come and speak as a member of the public, while other people are designated as part of the work group. It just diminishes our, any statement that we make is given the weight of a member of the public instead of the weight of a committee.
So are county work groups, are those formal processes that make sense. I just don't know the terminology.
Kim could probably correct me on the right term. I think work group is probably the right term, but Kim could correct me.
Yeah, we have a work group, for the comp plan, and there was a work group for the Stream Health Initiative. Both of those work groups accepted everyone who applied. And like I said, I think, you could designate someone from the committee to represent the committee on the work group. And I just quickly, to respond to Michael's comment, I think, anytime you want to create a statement to submit on any of these, planning processes or projects, I think that's certainly something the committee can do. And that's essentially what Christine does in the form of her letter to the board, right? So you could create it in a different format if that were desired.
Thanks. And I think I think some of this, Kim, may just be us understanding the process ourselves and in articulating more of this in the BAP about how we plan to work through some of these processes and how we plan to participate. It's not strictly, the fact that we have no consistency at the table is not necessarily staff's fault. It's also our fault. It's not or it's not even a blame thing. It's just a statement of fact.
All right. How's everybody feeling about 7:12? And I really appreciate Kate jumping in there and being our scribe. So it sounds like, does everybody feel comfortable with challenges? The first 3 bullet points. And the last one, NHC has no consistent seat at the table for participating in county work groups as advisors to the BOS. As advisors, BOS.
I would say maybe put in the positive, NHC needs a more consistent seat at the table.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And that's both a challenge to us and the staff.
That last little phrase there doesn't seem grammatically correct. Let's see. Consistency is a role of the NHC as articulated, which is a role of the NHC as articulated in the BAP.
If you want me to change it, I will. It's grammatically correct because it modifies it, but whatever sounds best, it doesn't matter. It reads, the NHC needs a more consistent seat at the table for participating in county work groups as advisors to the BOS, a role of the NHC as articulated in the BAP. We can put in which is. Does that sound better?
Well, I think so, but maybe it's just me.
Done.
Okay.
I
All right.
like it.
Beautiful.
Actually, I just looked up the BAP. It's not designated as a role in the BAP, but it's written on the county website as one of the roles, and I'm just trying to find our charter. I know I've seen it in multiple places.
Yeah, I think that
So
we just keep
we
it
need to
as
change that word.
which is a role of the, which is a
Yeah.
role.
Designated role of the NHC.
Yeah, maybe so.
Done.
There you go.
I think we maybe check if it's in the charter, because that is that's what the committee is designated to do, what's in the charter.
Are you looking at the charter, Leah?
Well,
Not the website, if you go to the, or I can open it up, but I can't do that and share this at the same time.
Yeah, I was Googling it. Nothing came up yet on the actual charter itself.
Yeah.
Comes up under as advisory. Well, that page is gone. I don't know. I don't have the charter. Yeah, see, it's there, but that's not the charter. Unless there's a link there. I was wondering if there was.
This is actually it.
okay.
Yep, this is what it is.
So who's overseeing the comprehensive plan? Is it the planning commission?
Oh, I mean, it's a whole series of groups are reviewing that.
Well, that.
So yes, the plan commission, the board of supervisors, the various work groups.
So
So-
where does it all end though? Is it at the supervisors or is it the planning commission takes the comprehensive plan input, formalizes it, approves it for submission as recommendations for the board of supervisors to approve? What I'm saying is that right there, if it's the planning commission, then that's it.
No, it's ultimately the board of supervisors will approve it.
Okay, well, that works too. We've been appointed by them to be advisors, be an advisory committee.
But it is interesting. I mean, it does say that this committee is also to provide advice to the planning commission. And I don't know that, I can't recall a time when we've explicitly, I know we've talked about it. I can't recall a time that we've explicitly sent a letter to the planning commission.
Well,
I didn't even realize that was part of her role.
well, I think that's, we can really, I think it's good to study this sheet right here, and we can see what our roles are. And then we take advantage of those opportunities, whether we designate somebody to be the representative, but there are opportunities to speak to the planning commission. And I'm going to send you guys, in terms of the comp plan update, there's a whole website dedicated to public engagement and many opportunities on there for each and every one of us to speak up. And I often say, when I do speak up, as a member of the Natural Heritage Committee, so how is everybody, I think we need to vote on this. And does everybody feel comfortable with what we have? It looks like that last statement is correct. This is one of our designated roles. And so the things that we are going to be adding is, Mike, you're going to help me reference these things to the BAP goals and recommendations.
That's right.
And there were a couple, I think Kim had put them made a comment on the other things that we'll be doing. We're in a description of the work done. Is that done now, you guys, the policy group? Or is that still to be done? Are there still additions that you guys want to make?
We could definitely make it much better. I just don't have all of the language in my head. I have to look things up. I found post-concussion, I do not have language anymore available to me.
Right. So that,
Could we set a deadline for, could we set a deadline for like 5 PM tomorrow or something? Was that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we have this annual report.
So
We are going to, as it sits right here, with the addition of the location of the pocket garden for the Historical Society, and the addition of language related to the policy achievements, and the addition of reference to the BAP goals and recommendations. Do we have a motion to approve the annual report?
I move to accept the annual report with these said additions.
I second.
Okay.
Okay, fantastic. Lonnie, do you approve?
Aye.
Peggy,
I do. I.
Kate,
Yes,
Abigail,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Bruce.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you guys so much for that. I think that was some important discussion about what is it that we're doing and how can we be more effective in doing that, right? So I thank you for that. Let's see what time it is. We have 9 minutes and we have, we were on, on our agenda was to look at the back goal number 4 and 5. I wonder, can we look at number 4? It's really short. And it has to do with our county lands. And I looked at this earlier today. And I think that this language could be expanded upon and that we could be more specific. And when we identify opportunities for habitat restoration or improved land management of school grounds. When I read this, I thought, can we be more specific? What exactly does that mean in terms of sort of laying out reduced mowing, planting more tree canopy, invasive plant management? Those were my thoughts.
I think helping schools primarily do some of the things you're suggesting there in a dedicated way. And I do agree we need more specificity.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Those are 3 great things you just mentioned.
And I'd also like to add training staff, so the landscaping staff, and so that they could use the Chesapeake Bay, oh, I forgot what it is, but the landscaping certification, and to actually either require that of the grounds maintenance staff or encourage training to be provided to those staff, the maintenance staff. So I think that there are definitely things that this could be beefed up and to be more specific about what is meant here.
Could
Yeah.
we propose something like that, Christine, that a training stipend were established and that, you know, within a certain time, all staff in that department were asked to complete it? Or it just seems like a concrete suggestion that we could propose and hope that someone would approve might really get that done versus voluntary.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all more specific than, I mean, I think we need to be more specific than what's in here, but maybe not quite that level of detail yet. I think, but I think, I mean, I think something more general, like identify opportunities for, I mean, what was it that, see, identify opportunities for staff education on natural resources or something like that about.
Yeah, well, and there are, you know, I think the specific programs.
There are specific programs. There's several, there's a bunch of different programs. And I think really, I mean, I see this more as less of a thing to force, you know, staff to like jump through some more hoops, because then we're just gonna, they'll just resent us for that. But more an opportunity to give them additional training that could give them the opportunity for career advancement.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, I think there's a lot of opportunities there. I mean, I was hearing today in a separate meeting about how one of the master naturalists was volunteering with, had been a consistent volunteer with some of our programs with the Soil and Water Conservation District, and was eventually hired as our education coordinator. And so having the opportunity for someone in park staff to do something like get a master naturalist certification or Chesapeake Bay landscaping professional certification or one of those things, there's real opportunities for career advancement with getting some of those skill sets.
So,
Both
yeah.
within and without and outside of the county. You know, I think that's very, it's a great benefit that the county could be providing to park staff.
Maybe we could make a list of suggestions and how it could benefit not individuals, but how it could benefit someone career-wise to make sure people are aware. Because then an individual might latch onto that and say, hey, that sounds like something I'm really interested in.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe a recommendation would be explore opportunities for career advancement for park staff through education about natural resources or something like that.
Yeah, that would be a perfect thing to add to the document that I had shared, the sustainable operations update.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christine, I was just going to mention that actually, that's why I have my hand raised, is that all the things you mentioned at the beginning and this whole goal actually is directly related to that. So you've asked for feedback on that. That's the perfect opportunity. And we're developing those sustainable operations policies right now. And one subsection of that is related to landscape management policies. So this is the time, to provide that feedback so that we can incorporate it in there.
So I will send that Google Doc out to you guys again and really encourage you to add to it because I've added to it. So just it'd be a great opportunity for other people to add their thoughts.
Thanks. There's another thing, and I'm not sure, maybe it's covered somewhere else, since this talks about county-owned and other public lands. I know in the policy committee, we talked explicitly about getting the having encouraging adoption and encouraging in the open there's open space plan that the state does every couple of years, and requesting a wildlife management area be added for Albemarle County in the open space plan. We're working with the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries to identify a place that could be a wildlife management area. And I kind of feel like it was in somewhere in the BAP, and maybe it's in a different section than this.
I think it is. I think we should go back and look and double check on that.
Because it does say county owned and other public lands, and it almost feels like, I don't know, maybe this is about promoting management. Maybe that's why I'm confused. Because there's other things that talk about acquisition that maybe shouldn't be in this block. It should go in a different block. Because this seems to be more the goal 4, promote management. So everything under recommendations should really be about management, I think.
Good point.
I would tend to agree.
And so maybe we move to whatever section that one is just talking about.
All right. Well, move to, we'd have to look and see where that would go. All right. All right, you guys, we are running at 7:29. And I appreciate for your feedback on that. I'm going to send, as soon as we're done, I'm going to send you this Google Doc on sustainable.
I'm I'm gonna have to go.
Sustainable
My
operations
phone is
update.
barking at me.
Wait, before we close, I
Just-
see we have a
no.
hand up from an attendee.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
Oh,
that
yes.
we have an attendee, Phyllis. I'm gonna allow her to talk
Okay.
here.
Hi, Phyllis.
Go ahead, Phyllis.
You're
You
muted.
there?
Sorry. I'm actually a Charlottesville area tree steward, and I'm a resident of Scottsville. and I'm staring down the barrel of a impending solar field. And I noticed in your annual report, in the last bullet in feedback that was provided to staff, it says solar project guidelines were given to the staff. Is that anything that the public could have access to?
Yes, and I can give you verbally what that is, as someone who helped to develop some of that guidance. So what we've said is, first, treat solar panels as impervious surface. So they should have stormwater management just like any other impervious surface. There should be a 100-foot buffer between the solar panels and any stream. There should also be a buffer, probably also at least 100 feet between the solar panels and the adjoining property. And then another recommendation was that we should, that any solar project should follow Virginia Pollinator SMART guidelines. Does that help?
Not really. The manager of the project is saying that they're going to drain a 6-acre pond. And that 6-acre pond is home to some amazing birds. And I've been talking to, the name escapes me now, Kirk Bowers about it, and trying to head off as much as I can. This company is not Hexagon. They're not user-friendly. So I'm trying to get my arms around where it is in the Planning Commission and what I can do to try to get in front of it. And it hasn't been easy to follow the breadcrumbs. So there will be a few of you that will be hearing from me, because I got your names, Lonnie, I got your name from Nancy Weiss.
Yeah.
And
So-
I got your name from Kirk.
So is this pond, is it associated with the stream?
Yes, the Todier Creek watershed.
Okay, all right. So then that would follow our recommendations that there should be a 100-foot vegetated buffer around any waterway or stream. So regardless of whether they drain that or not, it should maintain, and the county cannot regulate, because that's the Army Corps of Engineers. We cannot stop someone from, unfortunately, removing a wetland or a pond or a stream or any of that that's between them and the Army Corps, but we can require that they maintain that 100-foot buffer. So it kind of removes the incentive for them to remove a waterway if they can't then go back and put solar panels there. Does that make sense?
Right, because even if they drain it, they're still supposed to have a 100-foot vegetative buffer between the solar panel and the next property.
Yeah, so I would say there should, my opinion and my guidance has been consistent that buffers should be perpetual. Currently, they're not, as part of county policy. That's something that Kim is working on. They were perpetual prior to 2014, but this is a special use permit, so it's a different beast entirely. And so I think that there's a little bit more discretion by the county to decide how it how it decides to approve or not approve a project. And as I said, we provide our guidance. If we can clarify that guidance, I'm certainly willing to help do that.
Lonnie, does the Army Corps have input on draining of water? In that, would Phyllis reach out to them to gather some input on that?
Yes, I think it is good to, it can be kind of convoluted.
The considered waters of the US.
Yeah, I'd be if it's connected to a stream, it's waters of the US.
Okay, they can't destroy wetlands without having a plan to either not destroy them or minimally affect them, or buy wetlands credit somewhere else.
Correct. Now many people build farm ponds intentionally not connected to streams so that they are not subject to Army Corps. Now that the other thing is too, is they may try to dodge this using there's some sketchy business related to agriculture in the sense that if you call something a farm pond, it's no longer regulated by the Army Corps. So,
Ugh.
yeah, I know. It hurts me too. So,
The aerial photograph of the pond shows a lot of sediment. And Kirk is saying if they drain it, that sediment's going to go into the watershed.
Phyllis, where is this proposal?
It's in Scottsville. And it's a company from Colorado called.
It's in the town of Scottsville?
Yes, I live in Scottsville, and this proposed field, the first 453 acres are immediately abut my property. So they got those 453 acres in 2020, and they've been buying property up all around it ever since. I'm working to get that information. Nothing's out in the open. They're just going to owners and giving them money and saying, hold on to this. And they're telling people it's going to be approved by November. And I can't even get access to the Planning Commission to find out if it's in the Planning Commission on the agenda. I have no idea how to crack the code.
And Kim, I think, right, there is a process that has to be followed. There will be a public hearing. There's a whole public input, time for public input. I'm going to let.
Right. I mean, if it's in the county, if it's in the town of Scottsville, the town is an independent jurisdiction in most regards, I think. So it may be that you need to go to Scottsville Town Council to find out that information if it's actually within that boundary of Scottsville.
Well, I've already reached out to Donna Price.
Right. But like Charlottesville, I think Scottsville is outside of the county.
it's sort of outside the county.
Sort of. Yeah. In some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. So anyway, you might try to look into the town of Scottsville if it's actually within their boundary.
Yeah, you might pull it up on the county has a GIS system, and you can, if you can find it on where it is on there, then you can see whether it's in the town of Scottsville or not. Kim, is staff comfortable with our recommendations? Or do you feel like you need more recommendations from us? Did my recommendations I just said, those all sound familiar to you? Yes.
For solar.
Yes.
Yes, I have your recommendations and they are familiar. And, you know, we're also working, the climate program is working on developing some recommendations for utility scale solar facilities in the county that would be, you know, policy level guidance for incorporating into the comprehensive plan, hopefully. And the state is also working on some guidelines. So that all might not come together before this project that Phyllis is describing. I haven't heard of the project, so I can't really comment on it right now or where it is. But you know, we can maybe connect Phyllis another way and try to figure it out.
I left you a voicemail, Kim, today, so
Okay.
I'll be sniffing around you for a while. I'll get as much information as I can. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks for
We
coming.
helped.
All right, you guys. Thank you all for a productive meeting, and please make sure you respond to the poll so we can all get together and do an important site visit. We can keep on hashing these things around. We'll make it a public meeting too. All right. Thanks, you guys.
I
Have a
move
good
we
night.
adjourn.
All right, meeting adjourned.